Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 473 of Ink in Your Veins. I'm Rachael Herron, and I'm so glad that you are with me today as I'm talking to Lauren Aliza Green. And this is a fantastic episode. Another one of my new best friends. Seriously, this was such a joyous, joyful conversation. We talk about how human it is not to know what you need to know and to actually go into that mystery of writing. We talk about insights into character and listening to dreams and how writing a book is kind of like overhearing a conversation in another room. Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful, this conversation. So stick around for that. That is coming up. What is going on around here? Well, the election and yuck. Yuck. What a dumb way to put it. I can't I couldn't do all the swear words that I feel. But honestly, I am also feeling a little bit numb. I'm feeling that anger, grief, but also numbness because I'm not really sure what to do with this feeling. So I just wanted to say to you that if you are struggling also with what happened in the United States election yesterday, or day before yesterday, by the time this goes out, you are not alone. And there is this feeling when the bad guy wins, because Trump is the bad guy. Um, he's racist, misogynist, homophobic, transphobic, fascist. And if you don't agree with me, you can leave. I have no problem with that. Goodbye. But I don't think any of you were here anyway. People who are also all of those things don't listen to my show. So it's pretty safe for me to say that. And I don't care if it's not. Uh, I remember 8 years ago when he won. Oh, this is so funny. Jay Thorne and I know we were, well, I never know anything because my memory's so bad, but I do believe that Jay and I were doing our show, The Writer's Well. And we were talking about how heartbroken we were. And I had sent out this writer's email the day after that election. It wasn't a writer's email. I sent out an email to my entire list that said, this is bad. This is really bad. This is so bad. And I was also sending out love and commiseration and hope, which I have less of right now. That'll change. It'll come back. But I sent that email out and I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of well, I got unsubscribes in the thousands, and I got hundreds of really upset emails back saying, I can't believe you would say that to me. I voted for that man because, I believe in the things he espouses, better business and better finance for the country. And and that was great because I saved so much money on subscribers. You pay per subscriber on your subscriber newsletter list, and I literally started paying less. It was fantastic. It was a great way to weed out your email newsletter list. And the reason I brought that up is I remember that next weekend I had a writing meeting or a writers group that I was a member of, and there was a guest in from out of town, and it had gotten around the room that I had done this, and I'd lost a lot of readers off of my email newsletter list. And she wasn't a very pleasant person anyway, and we hadn't gotten along that well at dinner the night before. I was on the board, so I'd gone out to dinner, and we had just obviously had very different political views. We hadn't argued about them. We just had not warmed to each other. And she she talked that morning about how it was the most stupid thing you could do is ever mention politics to your readers newsletter group. And I remember just turning red out of embarrassment, yes, but also out of just disbelief that a writer could believe that. The personal is the political. We are writers. We use our words to change the world. If you as a writer don't intend to change the world in some way with your writing, what the hell are you doing? And that is how I woke up this morning with just a fire in my belly. Not, I guess maybe less grief than last time and more determination to use my words for good. And I want to encourage you to use your words for good. We are on the right side of history. We believe in human rights. We believe in equal rights. And we need people to say these truths to each other and to hold each other accountable for these truths. Oh my God, now I sound like a political pundit and I'm tired of myself already. So Also, what I want to say is, as writers, we form community with other writers in order to assist each other and to lift each other up and to hold each other up with our words, right? And something really, really beautiful happened this morning that I did not expect. I plunged into work this morning as an avoidance tactic. I went right into the new novel I'm playing with. I'm still only plotting and outlining, and I'm not really outlining because I don't outline, but I'm playing with character sheets and thinking about, where plot elements may where I may slap them down in the book at some point. So I'm playing with that. And then I had Rachel Says Right, which is twice a week for 2 hours at a time. So 4 hours during the week. I get together with other writers and we write. And I think I charge $2 for it on Patreon. It is a nominal fee just to get people the calendar so that they can show up because the times are always changing on it. And I just flipped the camera on, because it was time for Rachel Says Right. And I didn't think anything about it. If I had thought about it, I would have thought it's going to be a smaller group than normal because everybody's kind of, doom scrolling or hopefully out for a jog or doing something healthy or eating an ice cream sundae. Now I want an ice cream sundae. Whatever it is that people need to do to cope. And the room filled up. The Usually people trickle in, the doors open and there's one or two people and then three or four more join and three or four more a little while later and a couple more as the 2 hours roll in. It's really a drop in, drop out kind of place. You can come for the whole 2 hours or any part of the 2 hours that you want. And it just stayed full. And it was a beautiful place to be. It was a beautiful place to be with like-minded people who just wanted to sit around and write together completely alone, but supported and safe. There is something, and I'm honest to God, not trying to get you to join my Patreon and do Rachel Says Right, although I would love it if you did that, but that's not why I'm saying this. The reason I'm saying this is that when we write in community, any community, I love the London Writers Hour. Becca Symes group does office hours. A bunch of people write on Zooms. But when we are writing on Zoom, our brain, and we can feel this, our brain thinks, okay, I'm safe. I'm safe. There are people who can see me. They can't see my screen. I'm never looking at the all the blocks of people on the screen anyway. I'm looking at my document. So Zoom is always behind that. But someone could look at the Zoom and look at me and see that I'm here. And it just felt so supportive and so beautiful. And it wasn't a place to go and, you know, beat our chests and wail and cry. And we can do that at home behind closed doors, if we want to, or out in public, wherever you want to do it. But a writing community is a place where we came and we remembered who we were. We remembered who we are. We are people who know how to use words. There are a lot of people out there do not know how to use words, and that must be really difficult. We can, and we know how to use those words to achieve social change, to make important things happen, but we also know how to use words to comfort and to embolden and to give love to and to give courage to and to give comfort to. These are, I feel like my words aren't coming out very easily. I have planned none of this, but we're the ones with those tools. And how lucky are we that we get to use those? And we get to spend some time moping. Because I don't drink and I don't use drugs of any sort anymore. I made my wife get in the car with me and I said, we're going to get ice cream. And we went, and this was not a USA related thing at all. We just went to McDonald's because they have like the cheapest ice cream, but the most ice cream you can get for a cheap amount. I'm embarrassed to say this, but we got a McFlurry. It was so freaking good. And we went to the McDonald's that's right by the water, and then we drove to the water and we watched the dogs. We took the dog with us. She sat in the car. She had a little bit of ice cream too. And then we walked on the beach in the rain and we got out of the house. That's what we did last night. And it, I was going to say it didn't help. It did help. You know what? An M&M McFlurry really does help. Did help. And then Lala went home and had some beer and I went to bed. We have to do what we need to take care of ourselves. And part of that taking care is remembering that you are a writer for a reason. You don't. No one who is not a writer wants to write. Believe me, people, normal people, they don't want to write because they're not writers. If you want to write and this is a struggle for you, this is hard, this has been something you've been fighting to do and trying to do for a long time, that is normal. And you have a gift. You've been given this for a reason. Your words matter. Your words are going to continue to matter no matter where you wield them, whether it's online, social media, on a podcast, in your short story, in your flash fiction, in your poem, in your novel, in your memoir. Your words matter. First of all, they matter to you. They make you a better human being because you're following your artistic heart. And if you are a better human being, you get to show up more complete in your life. And that changes people's lives. And later, those words go out into the world in the forms of print and they change people that way. So it's like this double hit, and you have that. And I'm going to stop talking because I'm definitely on a cute little yellow and orange soapbox of my own making that I'm um, eager to step down off of. But I just wanted to say that I believe in you. You need community of whatever, wherever you want to get that. Go get some writing community, get support, get love. You're not alone. In this moment, while you're listening to me, you are safe. You want to put your hand on your heart and say, I am safe. I am telling you right now, you're safe for this moment. We're okay. And we're going to think about writing. We're going to talk about writing. Uh, we're going to talk to Lauren. And I talked to her weeks ago, long before any of this happened. So we're in a great mood. And this conversation, like I told you, will cheer you up to no end. So here we go with the bio for Lauren. Lauren Eliza Green is a novelist, poet, and musician. Her debut novel, The World After Alice, is out now from Viking and Penguin Michael Joseph in the UK. Her chapbook, A Great Dark House, won the Poetry Society of America's Chapbook Fellowship. Her writing has appeared or is forthcoming in LitHub, Virginia Quarterly Review, Three Penny Review, American Short Fiction, and elsewhere. Other recognitions include the Even Boland Award, sponsored by Poetry Ireland and Stanford University, and a spot on Forbes 2024 30 Under 30 list. Here we go with the interview. Your words matter, and don't ever think that they don't, please. Your words matter. Here we go. Well, I'm so glad to welcome you to the show. Will you please share your name and your pronouns with us?
Sure. It is Lauren Aliza Green, and it's she, her, hers.
Thank you. We have just been talking all things New Zealand, and I'm just trying to talk Lauren and her husband to move out to New Zealand. So you should do that as
It's
soon as
not a hard,
possible.
it's not a hard sell.
Well, actually, now I want to talk to you one more second about it. What was your favorite thing about New Zealand when you were here?
Oh, okay. Well, I was there in the winter, which was our
Hmm.
summer.
Hmm.
And I am such a winter person. So just seeing the mountains outside of Queenstown was covered in snow. I mean, it was just this winter wonderland. So, but I would say the nature in general, because I live in New York, I'm constantly craving being outside. And so New Zealand offered that in spades, and every climate, everything one could want in a trip.
In a very short amount of time. You know, I can
Yes.
leave my house and in 5 minutes, I will be, well, maybe 10 minutes, I will be looking at the snow right now in Wellington in the middle. But I also swim in the harbor or the ocean at least once a week, even in the winter. So it's great.
You
Do
just have it all. And it's
it.
the perfect place.
All right, let's talk about you and your writing. I'm so excited to talk to you because you are not only a novelist with your new novel out, which is The World After Alice, but you're also a poet. And I kind of want to touch on things relating to poetry. But first of all, can you please tell us about your writing process? When and where and how much? How do you get it done?
Sure. So I'm a morning writer. I typically write by hand. I have a journal with me at all times, and I like to do it daily as much as I can, just to, I would say, keep the clay wet.
Mhm.
It's easier to shape something when you're not working with something that's partially dry, I guess, to beat the
That's a
metaphor to death. But
it's a great metaphor that I don't think I've heard. We talk about, getting the clay on the wheel, but we don't talk about keeping it
yeah,
wet so that we
keeping it
can
wet.
manipulate
Right.
it. Yeah.
The way that you go in, you with the water and all the cracks and whatnot. And But yeah, I can write anywhere. I go to coffee shops or outside or on the train or at the library. I'd say my only requirement truly is that I have to have several books nearby. Um, and I don't know what that's about. I think sometimes I won't even open them, but just keeping myself in touch with other artists, other voices, other spirits is really important. And it somehow stains my work, I think.
Do you change the books often? Is there one book that you have close by more often than others?
Always different. I mean, every day will be different. It's part of why I like going to the library. I'll just
Mm.
take several books off a shelf and sit with them, and maybe I'll page through them a bit. But it really is just this comfort of being in conversation with so many people who have done this and are continuing to do it or did it 200 years ago.
It's drinking from the same well that you are sitting next to them. They're at the same well. I used to do exactly that at this. I love to write in my alma mater's college library, and it just had that really old
Yes.
book smell because they'd been rotting in there for 500 years and nobody had ever checked them out, and it was so good just to grab them off the shelf. So now you write longhand. Tell me more about that. How does it get from longhand into the computer?
This terrible process. I have to tell you, are you a longhand writer or you're
I
not?
am for everything except my actual work. I write, but I do a ton of journaling, and that's where I do all my thinking first. But
Yes.
I don't actually do fiction or nonfiction that I'm going to publish by longhand. No.
It is awful. And yet is the only way I can do it.
Yeah.
And so I write the books in several journals usually and then type them up, which takes so long. I mean, truly, it's baffling to me how much more time I spend typing up work I've already done than to do the work in the first place. But I justify it by saying that that process of moving it from the notebook to the computer is my first editing.
It's your first editing pass. So I can't talk you into getting something like a remarkable, right? Like
Whoa.
this. I'm gonna like angle it quickly because you could freeze in and somebody could look at my journal there. So I'm not gonna do that. But it feels like paper, and then you can hit a button and it will turn it into text, and it's pretty freaking accurate. And then you could just email it to yourself.
I kind of love this.
They specialize. It doesn't do much. It's a very expensive piece of equipment that doesn't do much. The thing that they really work on is making it feel like paper. It's kind of scratchy. It has the same sound. It feels really it's all different. Like I can use my favorite fountain pen
Oh, you can
nib,
use
and
pen.
well, no, sorry. You can
Oh,
use the fountain
okay.
nib on the app
Right.
itself.
On the
Yeah.
stylus. That makes more
I
sense.
mean, it does. I'm a pusher now because one of my friends talked me into it, and it does have a 100-day guarantee thing. And I was like, I'll just send it back if I don't love it. But I loved it within one day. Love it
Okay, you've convinced me. I'm gonna
so
check this out as soon as we end this.
much. It also has a little keyboard now that you could just like pop up. I can almost not find it, but yeah, it's wonderful. So, but I do believe I have had other writers tell me often that that first time that you type it in is the editing. Do you ever, this is just me being curious, do you ever get to a scene that you've written and you're
Yes.
not even just editing it line by line or word by word, but do you have the point where you're like, oh no, this scene doesn't even belong here? What do you do then?
All the time. All the time. Of course. Of course. Right? As anyone would with a first draft.
Yeah.
The other thing about my process, which I didn't say, is that I don't write linearly.
Oh
So
my
my
God.
journal I wish I do have my journal here, but it's just fragments with little stars in between, doodles in between, and then I'm typing them into a document and then transferring from that document into some sort of actual document where I'm weaving it all together.
Yeah.
So all of those terrible scenes do make it into that first thing just because I don't know. I might
Right.
might find use for it, but I almost never do. And then I have a discard document, which is, a
Yeah.
few hundred pages long.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That makes so much sense. And then what do you, again, just like nitty gritty, what is your favorite compilation tool? Do you use Scrivener or Word? Where do you actually do
Word.
the
I've never tried
Word?
Scrivener. Are you
Don't
a Word
bother.
person?
I'm a Scrivener person, but it's just so clunky. I'm always working with people like, how do I get my work out? I don't know. Scrivener's a mystery. I just have been
I
using it for
know.
so long that no, Word is
I feel
great.
like new
Keep doing that.
technologies, there's just that learning curve, and I'm so deep into Microsoft Word. Uh,
Exactly. Okay. Fabulous. So how does your writing poetry then differ, or is it the same?
so the process is basically the same, I would say. What's nice about a poem is you can write it relatively quickly. And when I'm writing poems, I do think of it as nest gathering, the way that birds are,
Mm,
picking out scraps
mhm,
for their nest. So it'll be a line and then another line. And the process can be very quick, or it can take months and months and months for something to come together. Um, but but I think I approach them maybe in a similar way. It's just that with fiction, I'm in a sustained conversation with a character, whereas with poetry, I'm in a sustained conversation with some other, which is the world or whatever silence lives on the other side of the world, I guess.
mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How does being a poet inform your fiction?
Hmm. Well, one thing is that I think what poetry has taught me is to be okay with sitting in uncertainty. Um,
Ooh, tell me more about
yeah.
that.
Okay. I As a writer, it's very important. Wow, I think no statement starts off well if I say it's very important. No, no, no. No,
Oh,
it's far too
we'll go with you. We'll go with you. It's very important.
great. I got nervous as I said that. As I'm talking about sitting in uncertainty, no, no. So I think what poetry has taught me from reading great poets is that there is some movement toward bewilderment in a poem,
Mm,
moving toward bewilderment rather than away from it. Um, because that place of unknowing, of wonderment or defamiliarization, whatever you want to call it, all of that is it's a very human place, right? It's very human to not know. And I think I personally can get into this trap of thinking I have to have answers, or
mhm,
or thinking that's even my job, when the author's job is A, not to have answers, and B, also not even to seek out the answers, right? It's something else. It's this third thing, which is to recognize how mysterious the world is, how mysterious people are, and to speak to that, right? Like there doesn't have to be a period. There can be a question mark, because so much of life is question marks.
mhm.
And so I think poetry has given me an awareness of how much mystery is out there, because that's what poems capture.
I could not love that more. And I am a person who definitely likes to have all the answers and to, if I don't, I'm going to find them. And I'm always
Yeah.
trying to move into that discomfort of the not
Yes.
knowing. But is it, I can't remember. Is this your debut novel?
Yes. Yeah.
So exciting. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
you're going to get emails from people saying, well, but what happens next? Like, what do they do next? And, and I'm always like, I have no idea. I don't even know what they did in there. I don't know. I really don't know.
Right.
And I have like had conversations in person with readers before where they ask these kind of things and they are just so flummoxed and probably disappointed that I don't know. And I'm wondering if poetry serves as a vehicle to kind of hold all of that. It serves for the writer, but also if people got more used to reading poetry, that also ushers you into that mystery, right?
Oh, totally. And what you're saying reminds me of that feeling of, well, I think of it as if you walk past a room and you can hear the people, you can hear the conversation. And then as soon as you get to the end of that room, oh, suddenly you're elsewhere and you don't know what happens. And
Mhm.
the book is that conversation that you've overheard, you know?
Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps. That's beautiful. Thank you. All
Thank
right. What
you.
is the most exciting thing you've ever realized about your own writing process?
Ooh, the most exciting thing, I have found recently, yeah, I think this is a fairly recent thing, that if I listen to my dreams, there's so many nuggets of gold inside them. Um,
Really?
yes. Have you ever dream journaled? Have you? Are you a
I
dreamer?
used to. I'm an active dreamer. I'm an exhausting dreamer. Like I will dream and then remember them for like an hour in the morning. And it's so, but I've never thought about using them. Tell me more about how you use them.
Okay, you have to, I think you must
I'll
write them down.
start. Yeah.
Yes. So the book I'm working on now, it came to me in a dream, which and the book that I worked on previously as well, which is that I just I saw this girl in this boat and this conversation that was taking place and I woke up and I thought, "Oh my God, that's there's a story, right? Like who is that girl who appeared, you know?" And so write down your dreams.
Mm. And then do you wake up and write them down and then just kind of let them float around?
Yes. Yeah, I let them float around. I would say that I guess for people who don't necessarily dream vividly, I have found that walking can induce a similar state of
Mm.
it somehow taps into the subconscious.
Mhm.
Um, and so to just be present to the voices that are churning back there, I think is what it comes down to. And to let them grow roots and um, start to I mean, this is going to turn into a really weird metaphor, but I'm thinking of like starting to grow features, you know, with
Yeah.
time. Um, and if you sit with it long enough, something will occur, you know?
Oh, that is so cool. And I am absolutely going to start doing that. I just read recently. So I don't have a good mind's eye. I don't really see things in my mind. I'm not totally aphantasia. I don't have aphantasia. I have like the sub fantasia, something like I
Yeah.
can see a little bit. Like if you say apple, I'll see like a child's drawing of an apple, but it's not very good. But I woke up the other morning and I had been dreaming about these gates that were incredibly ornate, like Victorian gates and rusted and green and copper. And I could see every detail of them. And I woke up and I thought, how could I do that in a dream? And I realized in all my dreams I see everything. And I Googled, it's not the same part of the brain. Your inner imagination is not connected to the visions that we see when we're dreaming. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. Also, you're just tapping into all of my pleasure centers because I love talking about people's mind's eye because I can see
Oh,
things to a very vivid, very vivid degree, but my husband can't see anything. So if I say, you know, you can't picture a candle in between us right now. And to him, that's inconceivable. And so we constantly are asking people, can you visualize stuff in space?
and it's so interesting when people who have never thought about it, they always have the either yes, no, or kind of, but they are very sure that everybody else has feels the same way. When I learned that my wife sees everything as if it is in front of her, I was like, how is that? How that's like you. That must be really cool and really fun.
I mean, but this just gets into, I mean, the idea of, you know, is your red the same as my red? Is your
Right.
green?
That has been bothering me
You
since I
never
was like
know.
6. You
Of course.
never know. So now you have to ask your husband. Is he a dreamer? Does he dream?
He's not really, which is why it's interesting to me that you dream so vividly.
And it's so interesting that I had never thought about it until recently and then Googled and
So when
I'm
you're
not a,
writing,
yeah,
you're not picturing your
I can't
characters.
see it. And at all, I can't see them. And even after I've written a book and described them, I can never see them. I've never seen my characters. And but what knowing this about my mind's eye is I struggled for so many books to add the setting, to add the description, to add the world building around them. And now, because I know I'm not good at it and I don't enjoy it and it frustrates me, I leave that for a pass. And I sit
Right.
down with, you know, detailed thesaurus and just make stuff up because I can build worlds with words and I see words. Always, I
Right.
have teletype uh, synesthesia. So whenever anybody says anything, I can see the words scrolling, and that almost builds a world. But yeah, but you can see your characters.
I can see them. I can see them. Yeah. I think
That's
it's almost like they're right there in the room with me, you know? I mean,
I
you
have
know.
I have like professional happy jealousy about that. I'm so glad that people have that, and I wish I did. But I have cool dreams.
You have,
All
yes,
right.
and you have other cool synesthesia. So,
That is, I do like that one, although I do need to know the spelling of everything. What is the part of writing that you struggle with the most?
so I don't think this will surprise you now, but um, I am. I'm not a plotter, and I struggle a lot with timelines, with
Mhm.
ages, with keeping track of, planting all of the little stakes in the ground of those details that I find so uninteresting as a person. I had one professor in grad school. She said to me, I just want to take all of your stories and throw a weighted blanket on them. Which
That's great.
great. And I always think about it. And I think I'm so not rooted. It's something I'm working on, right? That root chakra, because I love to just drift. And that is terrible. That's like a terrible quality for a novelist.
It's a terrible quality. It's kind of like my almost aphantasia that you just have to be knowledgeable about it.
Yeah.
And once you know it, then you can go back. You can do all of the airy drifting and then you can go back and build the roots. Did you ever read The Light Princess by George MacDonald?
No, should
It's
I?
one of my yeah, it's very short. It's kind of like it's a fairy tale and it's beautifully illustrated by Mercer Mayer. Mercer Mayer? Yeah. And it's just about this princess who is cursed to have no gravity. And then and how she is and who she is. It's one of my favorite books. So I don't know.
I love the
I'm
sound of that.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So what are you really good at writing wise?
Yes, I'm a character writer, which
Hmm.
I know I listened to one of your interviews this morning and the person also said she was a character writer. But I think I'm good at putting people in relation with one another and understanding what makes them tick or what is their source of shame or anger,
Mm,
and identifying subtle shifts in emotional states, the way that something inside of us that starts out kind of quiet or dull slowly intensifies and comes into focus. And I think a lot of that just comes from being an observer, being a listener. And I find people really fascinating, as I know you do as well.
mhm.
You know,
So how would you I'm a character writer and I'm also a character reader. That's what I want to read. I just said this to a class recently. I will read a book set in a kitchen. Like, and
yeah,
they never leave and they just have conversations like all the things you shouldn't do. I will read that book if it is deep about the character. So for people who want to get better at building or knowing their characters, do you have any tips for them?
I do. Okay. I have three tips. So the first is to watch, notice people, notice what they do, observe their actions, look for the subtext in their
Mm,
expressions and also in their words. So listen, write down what people say, eavesdrop, go out into the world, sit near a couple at a cafe, try to figure out what they're saying beneath what they're saying. That's a great
mhm,
exercise. My second tip would be don't be afraid of contradictions. I think that people are far more complex than we often want to believe. It's some sort of self-protective mechanism to flatten people to, zoom out when what we actually should do is move in a little closer.
mhm.
Because to confront somebody in full reality is to see them for all their facets. So don't be afraid to have arrows going in two different directions.
And
Um,
we don't need characters that everyone says like she would always act like this. She would, or she would
yes,
never do that. We want them to do the thing that they would never do and then reach in to figure out why. If she does something she would never do and we never get any insight into it, that doesn't
right.
feel right. But if she does something she would never do and we understand why, oh,
Yes.
we're that
And she
person.
surprises herself because we're
Yeah.
always surprising ourselves,
For
We're
the good or for the
never,
bad.
yes. Yes. And what does that mean? To sit with that, to reckon with what it means to do something at, age 50 that you have never done before
Mhm.
and how that shifts your sense of self because of course the self isn't stable. I think that's makes for the most interesting moments in fiction. And
Mhm.
then my third, which gets into the empathy portion of it, but to understand what the world looks like through somebody's eyes, and I do that through description actually. And so a small tangent, but in therapy, there's this idea of gestalt theory, which is, you sit in a room and then you describe something in the room. So let's say you and I are together right now, and I might pick out whatever the plant that's behind you, where you might pick out like this wire or something. And what does that say about us? Like, if you put your characters in a room, they are all going to notice something different and they're all going to engage with the world in a different way. And so I say to students or whatever, figure out what it is your character focuses on, because what that thing is tells you everything about their thought processes.
I love that. And in the past, I know I've thought about this kind of thing. What would they see? What would they experience when they walk into a room that would be different from everybody else? And why? But recently I've been letting go of the why. I don't even care. Like by learning what they'll focus on and watching what they will focus on or look at or engage with tells me the why in a way. That's how I uncover that's another great way to uncover character, right?
Yes,
To let
of
them
course.
lead if you are a fly by the seat of your pants kind of writer, which I am as well. If you're a plotter, maybe you want to figure that out in advance. But it's a spectrum. Those are beautiful tips. Thank you so
You.
much for those. May I ask you, what is the kindest thing you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
Yes. Okay. I so my book came out in July, and I took myself on a trip to Alaska on pub day, because I was afraid of, getting caught up in the game
That
or the
is
yeah,
amazing. I always want to run away, and you did. That's
I did.
great.
I'm a big runner awayer. I do. I love running away, and I highly recommend it.
Me too. I had a Kickstarter like hit its goal recently, and I had to I had to leave the house because I just couldn't look at the computer when it was about to close. And then my assistant, God bless you, Ed, but he was texting me and like, please don't tell me what it's doing. I'm running away. So in Alaska, how long did you go for, and what did you do there?
I was there a week. I was hiking and camping.
Mm,
I This is my best medicine. I mean, for anybody,
mhm,
just put yourself in the world. Everything feels small beside the mountains, beside the tallest trees, beside the big blue sky.
mhm.
Um, it really puts life into perspective. And I felt like I just sort of knew I would need that. Um, that sense of my only job right now is to just be a person, which is, of course, hard enough, is to just be a person. So that was a 10 out of 10 idea.
That is the smartest thing I've ever heard anybody do for lunch. Literally.
For your next book, you
It's
must do it.
it's the smart. Wow, that is so freaking good. Thank you. Nobody's ever said that either. All right. Can you tell us about a specific moment that you knew you had ink in your veins?
Yes. Okay. I, well, so I was always a reader, always a writer. As a kid, I would keep a pencil and paper beside my bed just to write down any thoughts that came to me in the night. But the moment that I was thinking about when I was thinking of this question was that in first grade, I had a crush on this boy. He was my best friend, and I was so shy. I mean, I'm by nature I'm a shy person. And so I wrote him this love letter, and I know it's very sweet, but my siblings found it and relentlessly mocked me. Relentlessly. I mean, it still to this day is so embarrassing, but
Mhm.
all I remember was that I felt like I could communicate something via words that I could not ever say. Um, and for someone who moved around the world feeling almost like I was caged in,
Mhm.
just like so, yeah, that was a revelation. It was like, oh, I have power. I can cast spells.
Mhm.
I can make things happen. And I don't have to speak while doing it. I mean, I'm speaking, but I'm not.
Yeah,
And so that was actually the one that came to my mind.
that's beautiful. And you moved from being feeling unheard to
Yes.
unfortunately feeling really heard, like you were really, really heard by the wrong people, but it's still a power. It's still a form of power.
It's power. and
Yeah.
and to evoke those emotions, I mean, it cast itself back on me,
Mhm.
but it was this realization of like, whoa, this thing has acted on somebody, and it was just sort of this mind-blowing thing in my mind.
Oh my goodness. Now, yes, 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 yes. I'm enjoying everything you're saying. I'm enjoying this conversation so much. I would just like you to
Me
know.
too.
All right. What is the best book that you've read recently? And why did you love it?
Okay. Hardest question. Hardest question.
I know. That's why I always put it in.
Okay. Last week, I read A Good School by Richard Yates. Have you
Hmm.
read it?
Mm-mm.
Or have you read Richard Yates?
I have not.
Okay.
I've heard him. Should I start with that?
No, well, he wrote Revolutionary Road, which
Mhm.
is his most famous, The Easter Parade, which is, I think, maybe his best. But you should read him, in
Okay.
especially somebody who loves character.
Yes.
Nobody is smarter, in my mind, about people than Yates. Um, and and his prose just sings. Every single word feels deliberate. Um, and his books are all tragic. I would say they're all tragedies, but it's just the tragedy of being human. It's the
Mm.
very prosaic. Revolutionary Road is about this suburban couple as their marriage slowly disintegrates. You would love it.
It sounds like I would. This is my catnip.
Yes, me too. And well, so anyway, a good school follows this boy's boarding school, and not much happens on a plot level, I have to say. But the universal experience of being an adolescent is he nails it. Like the humiliation that you experience at every moment is just right there on the page. And no one does it better. So read Richard Yates.
Thank you. I will see what the library has and get on the list, and I'm sure they will have it all. And he's been on my list to check out, but I hadn't heard such a glowing recommendation. So thank you.
I need you to tell me once you
I
have,
will. I
because
will email you.
okay.
I totally will. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, speaking of amazing books, can you please tell us about your debut novel?
Yes, I would love to. Okay, my novel, The World After Alice, was released this summer, and it is a family drama that follows this cast of characters as they're reunited for an unexpected wedding, 12 years after a tragedy tears apart their lives. And so we see them, it's told through six different voices,
Mm.
and we see these characters as they're moving through grief, and in doing so, revolving around this absence, which is, the void of the person that they loved. Um, and so, yeah, when I was working on it, I was thinking a lot about that idea of defining something by orbiting it. Um,
Mhm.
and then what emerges from that is the shape of the thing that's no longer there. And so
Mm.
that's what voices are doing as they're also trying to break free from that cycle.
6 points of view is a lot. Did you start out with six? Did you start out with eight or four? How did that go?
Yes, I started out with far more than six. I didn't want any rules, as you can imagine. I was like, I'm going into the head of the dog. I actually did go into the head of the dog.
Good.
I mean, why not? Right? I This is my big feeling is like, we're all moving slowly toward death. Like, what are we here for if not to take chances, to try things? What do we got to lose? So it did start out quite in this unruly manner, and then slowly I had to identify who were the core people in this book.
And how has it felt to have it out on the shelves?
Ooh, it feels like something I can't put words to. This is one of those moments where I feel speech fails me. It's all of the feelings, you know? You've been
Yep.
there so many times. What do
Yeah,
you
and
think? How do you feel?
you know what? It always feels, if I'm going to like limit it and make it smaller, it always feels fantastic and exciting. And also, like, I don't care that much. Like I can't adjust the book anymore. I can't touch it. I can do what promotion I can, but I can't make it suddenly take off and I can't make it fail. It's just, it's living out there and it's not living with me anymore.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I'm the same way. I'm much more invested in the book I'm currently working
Yes.
on, which is great.
As it
I'm
should
somebody
be.
who, yeah, as it should be. But what
Hmm.
you say, you cannot touch it, right? It's as if it's behind glass or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's somebody who likes control. I mean, authors love control.
Yes, we
Um,
do.
yeah, so it's like, I don't want to be on that airplane where all the turbulence is happening and I'm not behind the wheel. Like, get me on this other flight,
Exactly. Oh, this has been just a total joy from top to bottom.
I
Thank you
agree.
for spending your evening with me. Thank you for taking this on an evening. You're working late, and I really appreciate it.
Oh my
And
God,
I
thank you.
very much mean it when I say look me up when you come to New Zealand. And I almost forgot an important thing. Where can we find you on the internet, please?
Oh, I have a website. It's laurenagreen.com. Um, that's pretty much where I'm at. But
Perfect.
yeah, thank you. This was like, it's such a gift to converse with other writers, and you've made a space for that. So thank you.
I'm very lucky, and I'm very lucky to talk to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.